Hi friends, welcome back. So as most of you know, I've recently moved into a new house and pretty much all of my plants are doing really great adjusting to the move. Normally, especially if you move in the winter, it can be kind of rough on the plants to not only have to adjust to the new environment and the new home, but to also have to adjust to there being not as much sunlight or the days being shorter and everything else that comes with winter. So I thought that I would just share with you guys some of my tips and tricks that I use to help keep all my plants safe and happy during the move. Okay, so one of the most important parts of moving all your plants safely is to make sure that you prepare well beforehand. So some of the things that I did before the move was I let my plants dry out quite a bit so that they wouldn't be as heavy for me to carry them. Obviously, take that with caution. If you have plants that need a lot of water, don't let them get dangerously dry because that's just going to stress them out even more. But it is okay to let your plants dry out just a little bit extra so that it is a little bit easier on you to move them. Another really small trick that helped me out a lot during the stress of trying to pack everything and get ready to sign a new lease and all that stuff was that I would go ahead and put plants in boxes, like open boxes or totes or something like that, crates, and then I would just leave them in those boxes by the windows in my apartment. So I would just leave my plants in some boxes by the window. That way, whenever I was ready to move, all I would have to do is pick up the handles and carry them wherever I'm going. Another really important tip I have is to box all your plants together in like groups. So for instance, I would box as many succulents as I could together. That way, when I got into the house, all I would have to do with them is just sit them in the windowsill. I wouldn't have to worry about watering them or anything like that. I could just kind of set them kind of out of my way and move on to other things. But with more needy plants like ferns or alocasia, I would box all those together so that I could keep them still close to the window, but have them somewhere a little easier for me to notice them so that I can water them right away if they're dry, and I can also just keep a better eye on them while we're still in the process of moving. If you have any plants that are more delicate or fragile or are just more important to you and you really want to keep them safe, I would recommend putting them in a box or a tote by themselves. I'll insert a picture of what I did with my string of hearts because I was really worried about that one moving just because the leaves are so delicate. So I just put it in a tote by itself and it was really easy to kind of carry it around and keep it safe and keep an eye on it. Okay, so now moving on to the big day, the day you actually are moving all of your plants over. And sometimes people will, including myself, I didn't move all my plants in one day. I took them in groups. But even if you're moving them all at once or on separate days, most of these tips will still apply to you. So the first one is don't move your plants to your new place until the heat is on in that place, because you don't want to be taking your plants from your nice warm other house to this really cold house. It's going to kind of shock them and it'll make the transition a little harder. Also, try, if you can, it's not always that easy, but if you can, move your plants before the heat in your old place is off so that they're not sitting in those cold conditions at your old place. If for whatever reason you can't get your heat on and you have to move the plants that day anyway, I would just recommend getting like a small space heater or even a kerosene heater if you don't have electricity yet. It's really just anything to keep the plants from getting too cold because that can lead to some decline in them. So when it comes to actually loading up all the plants into your vehicle of some sort, whatever you have, I moved all my plants in. I moved them all in my car, and I think I only had to make one trip. No, I had to make 2 trips. But I packed the car pretty much as full as I could. And my tip for that is that I put all the larger plants in my car first, and then I fit in the boxes of smaller plants around it. Just so it was kind of like playing Tetris with plants. You want to put them in a nice way where they're kind of helping each other stay secure so that they won't move during the drive. Luckily, I only had a very short drive, so I didn't have anything to be too concerned about. But for those who are moving maybe a long distance, you really want to be careful about making sure that the plants are secure in wherever you have them. Okay, you guys, all the plants are in the car. I'm gonna show you what this thing looks like. So I've got some bigger plants in the front seat. Vining philodendron just hanging out there. And then in here, we've got a lot going on. I just have a bunch of things in crates, and I put my seat down and I just have them stacked up like so. A bunch of things in boxes, a bunch of cuttings and like that. And the trunk is just kind of some last minute, didn't know where else to put these kind of things. And there's a couple plants in there. And then the view from this angle, we got this big tray full of plants. Some more baskets, my big monstera just hanging out on the floor with a pothos. And I figured that once I close these doors, everything should be nice and secure and won't slide anywhere. An example of making sure my plants were secure is I would put a bunch of them in a tote, and then I would try to fit them together nice and compact, but I also would put other things in the kind of empty spaces to fill in. So I'll insert a picture where I just use like a kind of flimsy plastic cup to hold all the other plants into place, just as something to make sure that they didn't slide around. My last tip for the actual moving part is to just ask for help. Sometimes we have either a lot of plants or some really big plants, and we want to, be able to move them ourselves, because I don't know about you guys, but I get a little anxious about trusting other people to move my plants and take care of my plants. But it's definitely important, if you have someone who's able to help you, that it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Especially if you're moving up and down stairs and like that, and you have furniture and all of the other things that you have to do. Don't be afraid to ask for help from the people around you. It'll make it a lot easier, and it may even end up saving some of your plants from being damaged. So as far as after the move, this can also be a really critical time to the plants. You want to make sure that they're having a nice, easy adjustment, and sometimes that's difficult, but there are a few things you can do to help. So try to put your plants in your new place in similar lighting and humidity conditions as you did in your old place. So for example, if I had a group of succulents in a south-facing window at my old place, I would do my best to put them back in a south-facing window here. I know it's not always that easy with moving and things being different, but if you can, just try to give them the similar amount of light and humidity. For a lot of my ferns, I plugged in my humidifier for the first couple weeks that we were here, just to give them a boost of humidity. And I'm not using it anymore just because I don't feel the need to, but I think that helped them adjust a little bit better to the new environment. And the last thing I have for you guys is to remember that some decline is normal in plants, especially around the winter time, and especially when they're going through some kind of change in environment. So while you can do everything you can to try to keep them healthy, it is okay if you get a little bit of leaf loss or they just don't look super happy. Just try to be patient with them, and hopefully they will all bounce back. Most of mine did. There are only 2 examples I have of plants that didn't bounce back, and one of them is the miniature jade plant that I had completely cut back before the move because it had spider mites. That guy just never grew back, and I ended up having to toss him out, which I was really sad about because I really liked that plant. But with it being winter and having pests and doing the move, it just wasn't going to work out for it. The other plant that I have is also pretty sad. It is this little alocasia frydek. If I can find a photo of what he used to look like, I'll insert it. But right now, he is just this one little leaf. which makes me really sad because he was getting so big. But as you can see, the babies are doing pretty well. So I think I'm just going to end up, once this leaf dies off, I'm just going to end up separating out these two babies and potting them into a smaller pot. And honestly, I'm okay with that because it'll take up less space anyway. So I am not too sad about it. Another tip I just thought of is if you have a plant, like for instance, the string of hearts or something like that, that you're really worried about and you don't know if it's going to make it through the move, I would highly recommend just taking a couple cuttings of it and maybe putting it into like a mason jar or a Tupperware container with some moss or some perlite or something, just so that you can have that baby plant in kind of a controlled environment, so that even if the mother plant doesn't do well with the move, you still probably have the baby plant. Alright guys, that is all my tips for moving your houseplants during the winter. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got some good information out of it. And if you are moving soon, best of luck, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!